Hello, I'm Nora and welcome back to Novels with Nora. Today we are in a new location for my reading wrap-ups because it is so dark and gloomy today that if I were to film in front of my bookshelves, you wouldn't see a thing. So we're over here cozy in the chair. I've got a little blanket. I imagine this will be a bit of a shorter wrap-up because this was honestly one of my, I don't want to say worst reading months, but lowest quantity-wise reading months in a while. So I don't have a whole lot to talk about, and every single book that I have to talk about has been in a vlog, so I don't have a whole lot to share with you today, unfortunately, but some of the things that I read were really great. Some weren't, but get yourself cozy under a blanket. I hope the weather is better where you are than where I am, and let's just get right into my July reading wrap-up. So to start this month off, I feel like I was in a bit of a reading slump. My summer class that I'm in right now has really been taking a toll on me, honestly. It's a very involved class, and I'm really enjoying it because it really is like getting to the heart of what I want to do and what I will be doing as a teen librarian, but it's very hands-on, very in-depth, and I'm really enjoying it, but it is taking a lot out of me, so I was just not really in the mood to be reading. And then when I did read, it was for the July Buzzwordathon, which I do have a whole vlog of on my channel, so you've already heard me talk about these books if you've watched that video. And I started with Inner Space by Jakub Szmalek, I believe, and this follows an astronaut, Lucy, as she is going up to the International Space Station, and on the International Space Station, she will be the commander of the crew that's up there, and the crew is her and the American team, as well as 2 Russian astronauts. And while she's up there, an ammonia leak occurs on the ship, and it causes tensions to rise between the Russian and American side, as well as just between the Americans, between the Russians. There's just tensions everywhere, and it's Lucy's job as the commander to keep unity among the crew, as well as to find out where this ammonia leak is coming from. And so she's dealing with all that up in space. And then back on Earth, we have her husband, who is very much a worrier, has a lot of anxiety, especially about Lucy going into space. So he's kind of like trying to figure out what's going on because he's getting the news that things are going wrong up on the space station, and he's like trying to figure out what's going on from Earth and making some discoveries. And then we have our final perspective, which is Steve Iyer, who is the deputy director for crewed space flights. So it's like he's like in charge of this mission to the space station, and he is trying to like cover things up, as well as trying to like keep the relationship with the Russians as strong as it can be, and things are just falling apart on all ends, and it's very much a mystery. Rather, when I was going into it, I thought it was going to be more in like the space horror genre, and it was definitely more in like a space mystery, which is not something I read before, and it just didn't really work for me. This was translated from Polish, and I don't know if it was the writing or the translation or a combination of the two that made it not work, but there were also just a lot of like interjections in the character's monologue and in conversations that would like go on for like pages, and it just like really took me out of the story, and just like it wasn't a fantastic reading experience, but wasn't horrible either. Like the plot was enjoyable, and you could tell that the author had really done his research on space and on the International Space Station, so it was enjoyable in that way. And so this was a 3.5 star read for me. And then also in that video I read Come and Get It by Kylie Reed. I had read Such a Fun Age from this author when I was still in undergrad, and absolutely like I really enjoyed it, and so I was really excited to pick this up. And this follows quite the cast of characters. We have Millie, who is a student at this college that is being explored in this novel, and she is like a super senior because she had to leave for a year to help with some family things, and now she's back as an RA in this dorm that's like for like transfer and like scholarship students. So she is an RA here, and she gets introduced to Agatha, who is a visiting professor and a researcher. And Agatha originally is doing research on weddings and like the celebration of a wedding, but while she is interviewing some girls that live in Millie's dorm for her article, just hearing the girls talk and just like the way they interact with each other, she becomes far more interested in like campus culture and the culture of these girls living in this dorm, and things just kind of devolve from there. It's a very meandering story that doesn't really have a super strong plot, but that really worked for me, and I love Kylie Reed's writing, and it's more of like a character exploration than it is like a strong plot story, and like that really works for me. I love a meandering narrative that really just like takes time to get to know our characters, and if you enjoy that, I think you'll really like this, because this is the most truthful and honest and real representation of living in a dorm on a college campus that I've ever experienced in any type of media. And so this just like, it really like brought back my own emotions of living on campus, and like Kylie Reed just captured them so perfectly. And in the author's note at the end, she mentioned that she did her own research, like talking to students to write this, and you can just tell because every conversation and every interaction just feels like something that you would experience, and like not necessarily in a good way. Like, every character in here is a mess, but that's really what college is, because college is that time in your life when like you are making mistakes and you are being messy, and this just puts that on full display. And so I can see why this wouldn't work for everyone, but it worked so well for me, and I ended up giving it 5 stars. In my video, I was going back and forth of like, I think it's like a 4.5, but like the more I talked about it, the more I was thinking about a 5, and it is a 5 because I still think about this book. The messy relationship dynamics between all of the characters, the way that like they're roommates and so they should get along but they don't really, and then like Agatha's research and the way that she's going about all of that, everything in here was just so wonderful. But again, this is very clearly not for everyone. Like, if you don't enjoy like a meandering narrative and like a character study, if you need more like of a strong plot, I wouldn't recommend this for you. But if you like a meandering narrative and a character exploration, I do think you might really like this. After that, after like a 5-star read, I was feeling more motivated to keep reading, and I decided that I was finally going to open my blind date with the books that I got way back long ago. It was like a few months ago, and I opened them and I had 1 flop. You'll have to go watch that video to see what that is. And 1 mediocre win, and that was The Fervor by Alma Katsu, which follows this mother and daughter, Meiko and Aiko, as they are in a Japanese internment camp in Idaho? I don't remember exactly what state they're in, but they're in a Japanese internment camp, and a mysterious sickness is spreading within the camp that is causing people to become violent and turn on each other and kill each other. And so Meiko is in here really just trying to keep her daughter safe, while her daughter is like drawing these demons and being like, the demons are coming for us, like this is the end. And she's like, oh, lovely, okay. And then we also follow 2 other perspectives outside of the camp. We have Archie, who is a like pastor type character, and while out for a picnic with his wife and some kids that they're babysitting for the day, something falls from the sky and explodes, killing everyone in that party except him. And so he's reeling from that and like trying to carry on with his life without his wife, like who was his rock. And then we also have Fran, who is a reporter journalist, and she also experienced one of these things falling from the sky from a distance. So she saw it and she was like, oh, there's a good story here. And she then starts investigating what these things falling from the sky are, and eventually their 3 stories intersect and they kind of have to deal with the fallout of these events together. And I enjoyed it. I just feel like because I went into it expecting like full-on horror, I kept waiting for like something to happen to like really ramp up the story and the horror of it all, and it just didn't happen. And so I think if I had gone into it with different expectations, I think I might have enjoyed it more. I think had I read it not from the blind date with the book and just like read the description and like some reviews before going into it, I could have like altered my expectations for it, and I think I would have enjoyed it more. But because that didn't happen, it ended up being a 3.5 for me, just because again I kept like waiting the whole time I was reading. I was like waiting for the other shoe to drop and like things to really ramp up, and because that just didn't happen, I just was kind of left feeling a little bit disappointed with it. Not to say it's a bad book, and I really enjoyed the writing and will pick up other things from this author, but because I was expecting so much more from it, falsely, I shouldn't have had those expectations, but I did. So it just led my reading experience to be less than ideal for this one. Next are 3 things from a vlog that you have not seen yet because I'm currently working on it, but you're gonna get a little sneak peek of what I'm reading there. And I am having such a fun time with this vlog. You're probably going to see it next week at some point, and I'm very excited for this because I'm genuinely having a really great time. So the first thing I read was You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight by Caitlin Bayron, and I loved this. This was such a short little horror that follows Charity as she is working at this, like, it's technically a summer camp, but people don't actually like, go there to camp. There was a horror movie that was filmed at this location, and it now has been turned into like a fully immersive like horror experience where it's like a haunted house kind of, but like you get like chased around and like murdered by the characters who are like playing the murderers here. So it's like one of those like full tactical haunted houses pretty much. And Charity plays the final girl, and she also kind of like runs the show here. And this season she's having a lot of issues at home because like her mom isn't super great and like not really present, and then her mom's boyfriend is just kind of awful. But so she really loves coming to this camp because then she gets to spend her whole summer here doing things that she loves, being in charge, having a great time. However, this summer things are a little bit different because the people that are supposed to be working with her are like, they're dropping like flies. Like they're just quitting and leaving and like not having a great time, not really helping out. They're there to slack off. And she like is really passionate about what she's doing here. And so she ends up calling in her girlfriend and her best friend to come help with like the last game of the season, just to like have enough people to run the show. But then something happens one night that causes the owner of the camp to call and say, no, things are getting out of hand, like just shut it down now, go home for the season, we'll deal with it later. And she's like really disappointed because the last game of the season is like the biggest, most fun game, and she was really looking forward to it. So she's disappointed until the people that she's with start getting picked off one by one, and then they're facing real actual horror on this summer camp property, and she has to use the knowledge and the skills that she's gained playing this final girl to try and be the final girl. And I really enjoyed it. It took a turn at the end that I don't want to say because it's only like 230 pages, so I don't want to give too much away, but it took a turn that I didn't love. And like, I will say, I was genuinely scared. In like the middle chunk, I was like on the edge of my seat, heart pumping, like palms sweating, looking out of my peripheral, like I was afraid. And so the writing here, really fantastic. And because it's so short, I feel like it doesn't give into the monotony of like, okay, well, scary things keep happening, but like, we're not getting anywhere with it. Whereas scary things were happening and like bad things were happening. It was all happening so fast. But then when we got the reveal of like who was causing or who or what was causing the things to happen, I was a little let down by that. So this ended up being a 4-star, which is still really great. And I really enjoyed it. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. You'll have to watch this upcoming vlog to see my real like overview thoughts. And then I went to This Delicious Death by Kayla Cottingham and really enjoyed this one. This follows our cast of 4 girls who have all graduated high school, and they are all going on this last trip together before going their separate ways. But this is set in a world where this thing called the Hollowing happened, where this like sickness spread and people would get like sick to their stomachs, and some people would heal and like get better and be fine, but some people turned into these like zombie vampire hybrid creatures called hollows or ghouls. And they're referred to as both hollows and ghouls, and they have like this thirst and hunger for human flesh. So during the Hollowing, it was like an apocalypse, like people were dying, people were getting eaten, but the government came up with this like synthetic organs and synthetic flesh called sin flesh, where the hollow people can eat it and like be satiated, and so then they don't go feral and start eating people. So things are now calmed down from the Hollowing, and these 4 girls are taking this trip. This is like a first trip going outside of their city after the Hollowing, and all 4 of them are ghouls, and so they're like a little bit afraid of what's gonna happen because they're gonna be surrounded by so many people at this music festival that they're going to. Honestly, I feel like this book could have gone so many ways, and I probably still would have enjoyed it just because I really enjoyed being in this world, because it's told from the perspective of Zoe, one of the girls on this trip, but then we're also getting flashbacks from each of the girls of like what happened to them during the Hollowing and like what life was like for them during that period. And so the world feels very like fleshed out and like very well built, while not really like going super in depth with it, which I was really wonderful and I really enjoyed. But then while they're at this music festival, something happens to make one of the girls go feral, and she eats someone. And then they're like, okay, well, this doesn't happen. Like, you just ate before we went out for this excursion. So like clearly something is wrong here. And so they start investigating what's going on to cause all of these ghouls to start going feral. And they get themselves a little in over their head, but I really enjoyed it. It really felt like a coming of age, like friendship story. And it was so like heartwarming, while also seeing these 4 girls like eat people together. The tagline on here says it's a girl eat girl world. It's also queer, and it was really fun. And so Zoe is in love with her best friend, and her best friend is a trans girl. So there was a lot of great representation in here, and I just really loved the way the world was so well built, while also not feeling like it was like doing a lot of like info dumping. And so I really enjoyed this. I know Kayla Cottingham has some other books that I really want to read, but this is the first thing I picked up from her, and it ended up being a 4.5 star. I really enjoyed it. It wasn't quite a 5-star, just because there were some things where I was like, I don't know about all that. Like, I enjoyed a lot of it, but there were some things, especially towards the end, where I was like, I feel like this is like a completely different book than when I started, which wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but did kind of take out a little bit of my enjoyment. But I did really enjoy this. Finally, I have a book that I just finished today, and that is I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones. And as the title would suggest, this follows our main character, Tolly Driver, as he recounts his experience of being a teenage serial killer. And it's really very fascinating because he is writing this from like 17 years in the future, like reflecting back and kind of like apologizing and atoning for what happened. And so we're seeing him in the future as like an adult at this point being like, well, back then this is like how I was thinking. So like we're getting his thoughts in the moment, but then also him like and his reflections from the future, which is really quite enjoyable. This is again a very like meandering story, has a stronger plot than Come and Get It, but is still very meandering and very much like a character exploration. I really enjoyed the world building in here because the setting of this small little Texas town really was like very strong, but then also dealing with like these slashers and the more like paranormal aspect of it was really interesting and not what I thought when I was getting myself into it, but I did really enjoy it. I just feel like this author knew what he wanted to do with it, and it just unfortunately didn't really work for me because the scene, I enjoyed the like character moments more than like the actual like killing aspects, which, you know, I think that says something good about me. But I feel like when we were reading from Tolly's perspective of him just like reflecting on things and like telling us about like what his life was like and what his friendships were like. I enjoyed those scenes so much more than like anything else, and I wish we had gotten more of them. So I wish it had less plot and more of like the meandering character study. And because it definitely was like a meandering story, because it did kind of, because he's reflecting back, it kind of takes time to get where we're going. But I found myself not really being able to picture what was going on when he was like doing the killings. And I don't know if that's because of how it's set up of him as the killer in here, or if I just like felt distanced from the story. And I think that might be like how it's supposed to be written, but something about it just didn't fully work for me. I do want to pick up more things from this author because I really loved the writing. This story I just don't think was 100% for me, so it's getting a 3.5, but I did really enjoy a lot of aspects of it. I just again wish it was more meandering and less plot, which is already saying something because there's not that much plot in here to begin with. But those are the 6 books I read this month, and 6 is the lowest number of books I've read in a month so far this year. And this month also has my lowest page count of the year. I think that really goes to show, like, because the whole first like 2 weeks of the month I wasn't reading anything. Like, I was in a slump, did not want to pick anything up. So the fact that I even got a 5-star and a 4.5 star this month, and then a 4-star, I would say, you know, overall pretty good. But those are the 6 books I read, and now I'll go into a few of the stats of things that I read. So like I said, 6 books this month, which like isn't a bad thing, because to me, if I read 1 book a month, I'm still reading, and so it's still a good reading month for me, you know? But 6 books, which was 1,954 pages, which is the lowest number of pages I've read in a month, which makes sense because a lot of these books were shorter than things I've been reading in previous months. But overall, I would say still a relatively good reading month, because I still had 1 5-star, 1 4.5 star, 1 4-star, and then 3 3.5 stars. And to me, a 3.5 star is still like a good book. I would say anything lower than 3s when it starts to get into like questionable territory, but 3.5 is still like, I enjoyed it, and there were parts of it that I really liked. There were just also parts of it that I didn't love. So a 3.5 to me is still always a win. And then I read 5 books physically with the audiobook, and then 1 ebook, and that was Inner Space, because I read that as an ARC. And also 3 of the books that I read are things that I own. 1 was from the blind date with the book, so I didn't technically count it as owned before I opened it, but I own it now. And then 2 of the other things, Come and Get It and This Delicious Death, I do own. So I would say overall pretty happy with that. And then the 2 other things are from the library. So I think all in all, this was a really great reading month. I read 4 horrors, 1 contemporary, and 1 thriller. So I feel like, and thriller was the Inner Space, because I'm just not really sure where to classify that one, because the genre feels questionable on that one. But this is the most horror I've ever read in a month. I feel like I'm really stepping into the horror genre as of now. So if you have any recommendations for horror books that you really love, literally like any kind, any type of horror that you enjoyed, I would love to hear it, because I feel like I'm really getting into horror, especially as we move into fall. I feel like I'm really gonna be wanting to read more of that, so I would love your recommendations. But that is my July reading wrap up. Like I said, this was gonna be a shorter video. I had kind of a questionable reading month with that slump at the beginning of the month, but I feel like we really turned things around. I was doing really well towards the end of the month, and the fact that we're already moving into August feels crazy. But like, I love the fall. I love back to school season, even though I'm doing online grad school, so it's not quite the same. But I'm just ready for it to not be like 90 degrees every day. You know, I'm ready for like the leaves to start turning. I'm just ready to be cozy, you know? I'm ready to wear my sweaters again. So with that being said, that is the end of this video. If you made it this far, comment the little ghost emoji for fall that's coming up. But other than that, I hope you like, comment, subscribe, and I hope to see you in another video again soon. Bye.